lot of people may not realize this, but dark comedy and satire have always had a huge influence on my music. Growing up, I was a kid, I didn't watch cartoons. I was watching Sanford and Son. I was watching Good Times, All in the Family. The only cartoon I ever watched was The Roadrunner, and I was rooting for Wile E. Coyote. And then I learned that Red Fox was a stand-up comic, and he became a huge idol of mine early on as a kid. I always loved the irreverent humor, and I used to have the album, You Gotta Wash Your Ass. I had that vinyl album hanging on my wall back when I was a kid. Fast forward years later, and I got big into guys like Bill Hicks, George Carlin, Sam Kinison, and Richard Pryor. Those were like the four horsemen to me. I always loved that comedy where no one was safe and nothing was sacred. And I realize it's all subjective, you know. There's people out there that likes, you know, different people. Some comedians, I call them safe humor. It's like humor that you could take your mom and dad to the show and they could get a laugh out of it too. And that guy might push the boundaries just a tad, but I never liked that guy. I wanted the guy that made the audience uncomfortable. I wanted the guy that ruffled feathers. I wanted the guy that got barred. You know, that's who I wanted to hear. And then later on, I'm reading The Trials of Lenny Bruce, and that stuff had such a huge impact on the way I thought about presenting my music. When Gary Lee and I began writing songs for the Realbillys, I think the one thing that really made he and I tick was our love for dark humor. We both were big fans of the TV show MASH, and I always loved how MASH would have tragedy, but they would have humor. That's kind of how we wanted Realbilly albums to be. We wanted there to be the humor and the serious thing coinciding at the same time. You know, people laugh at the song $3 Wine, but I've always felt it was a tragedy. If you actually lived with that girl, it would be a hell of a life. Eating in the Yard's another one. I think it's one of the saddest songs ever written, because these people got a disability and they feel as though they've hit the big time, you know, and yet they're still poor. There's a sadness to it, and that's the thing about dark comedy that a lot of people don't understand. Everybody hears the punchline, everybody laughs, but they don't see the tragedy underneath. You know, satire, by definition, is the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and topical issues. You know, people say stuff like, well, they're out here mocking my beliefs, they're trying to destroy my faith. If me mocking your belief system can destroy your faith, then you didn't have very much faith to start with. You know, I hear people today say things like, oh, they could never make the movie Blazing Saddles these days. Well, that's a travesty, you know, that we can't laugh at ourselves the way those men did all those years ago. Because what that movie did was use humor, irony, and exaggeration to ridicule and criticize people's stupidity. And that's what made Blazing Saddles so brilliant. Satire is part of our American history. I mean, satirical comedy has been used ever since Washington was running for president. And if mocking your president makes me a communist, then you really don't understand the true meaning of communism. You know, I've had people say to me things like, I can't believe you said that in a song. And I'm like, go back and listen to that song again. Did I say it? Or did the narrator say it? I don't understand why that music gets held to a different standard than movies. For example, in movies, an actor can play a racist, he can play a homophobe, he can play a murderer, he can play a rapist, he can play a child molester, and no one ever accuses that actor of being any of those things. He's applauded and he wins awards. Yet if a singer sings about any of those things, he's put up to ridicule. Suddenly we're being told you should shut up and sing, you shouldn't get political. How is talking about real issues that real people are facing while ridiculing the powers that be, how's that getting political? I mean, people will stand in line to see a movie, but they'll burn an album if they disagree with the singer. You know, you can go to Walmart and you can buy the never-before-seen, uncut, uncensored version of The Exorcist on DVD. You can watch a girl do some ungodly stuff with a cross, but you can't buy the album straight out of Compton that it's not edited. You can buy the movie, you can watch them sing Fuck the Police in a movie, but the music has to be censored. What sense does that make? Now, when you do satire, you can absolutely open yourself up a can of worms because it can always fall into the hands of people who use it in the wrong way. And if anyone were to ever take my music and try to hurt another person with it or hurt another group of people with it, I would be the first person to come out and condemn it. But I'm not going to quit singing the song simply because some asshole took it and made something bad out of it. You know, there are people out there who will take your music and do something really good with it, and there's people who will take your music and do something really bad with it. But you cannot compromise yourself for either of those people. So say what you will about satire and dark humor, I believe they still have a place in today's society, and I believe society would be better off with them than without them, and I will fight to the death for dark comedy and satire. And on that note, let's do another shot. To dark comedy, to satire, and to Richard Pryor, who once said, "Fuck them if they can't take a joke, and joke them if they can't take a fuck." Damn, that's good whiskey.